Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. The trade war has just hit a boiling point. U.S. President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs on as many as 60 countries have officially come into effect. Now, these include a 104% in levies across all Chinese imports. Initially, China was expected to face a 34% tariff increase as part of Trump's strategy, but the president added another 50% after Beijing refused to back down from its plan to impose 34% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods by noon on Tuesday.
We're going a 104% tariff. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will, they want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started.
Now, with Donald Trump's tariffs starting to bite, the European Union is preparing its response. Let's now go live to our correspondent in Brussels, Alex Cadier, for more. Alex, good morning. So how is the EU planning to retaliate exactly? What can we expect?
Well, good morning. It's tariff day here in Brussels, and the EU will be hitting back. That is the plan. We've seen a leaked document from the European Commission as to what it is preparing for these retaliatory tariffs. The choreography for the day is going to be pretty straightforward. We will have the member states voting on this proposal of countermeasures in about 4 and a bit hours' time. They will, we expect, sail through because there's no real opposition to these proposed measures. You're looking at slapping tariffs on up to 25% on a broad range of export. That includes agricultural goods from the US, meat, tobacco, iron, steel, aluminium, dairy products, and a list of other exports. What's particularly interesting, of the 22.1 billion euros that may be raised from these tariffs, 13 billion come from states that voted Republican in the last US election, perhaps a strategy from the European Union to hit the United States president where it hurts and affect those voters in particular. So that will be a particularly interesting development in this tariff war between the EU and the US. These countermeasures voted in the afternoon will then be in place in a matter of about a week. Now, the question is, can the EU get a deal with the US in the meantime? They certainly hope so.
And we'll definitely be coming back to you to see how this will all unfold. Thank you so much, Alex Cadier, coming to us from Brussels. Ukraine endured another mass drone attack on civilian targets overnight. The beleaguered city of Kharkiv recorded at least 15 explosions after Russia launched waves of Iranian Shahed drones, while at least 15 people were wounded in Dnipro and Kramatorsk, both of which also saw Russian strikes. Now, in total, Ukrainian authorities claim at least 55 drones were launched across the country. The State Emergency Service reported the strikes on Kharkiv targeted civilian businesses, warehouses, industrial facilities, and service stations. At least 2 people were wounded. Ukraine's second largest city is located only 30 kilometers from the border with Russia and has been under attack almost every night in recent weeks. Elsewhere, 15 people were reported wounded after attacks on Dnipro, Ukraine's 4th largest cities. Houses, high-rise buildings, cars, businesses, and other civilian buildings were heavily damaged. Closer to the front line, civilians were also wounded after an attack on Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region. Russia has not halted its attacks on the country's civilian infrastructure, despite calls from the United States for a 30-day ceasefire. America, pay more attention. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said following reports that Chinese citizens fighting for Russia were captured in the Donetsk region. Now, he sees it as a significant development in the ongoing war, pointing out that while China has officially claimed neutrality, it has implicitly supported Moscow. And now we go live to our Kyiv correspondent, Oz Chatterjee. Good morning, Oz. Now, what can you tell me? What could be the possible implications of the discovery that Chinese nationals are fighting alongside the Russians in Ukraine?
Well, President Zelenskyy has demanded a response from Beijing to these reports. It's important to note that video of these soldiers was published online as well by the Ukrainian government to prove that they had captured Chinese citizens. President Zelenskyy also stressed that he believes these are not the only two Chinese citizens believed to be fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. Let's take a listen to what Zelenskyy had to say and his demands towards Beijing.
There are documents, passports, and even credit cards. These are Chinese citizens. I believe this is a very important moment. I think the United States should pay more attention to what is happening now. And we expect that this is another country that is militarily supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine, after Iran and North Korea. But there's a difference. North Koreans were fighting against us on the Kursk front. The Chinese are fighting on Ukrainian territory.
Now, Beijing has denied these reports, with Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian saying that these were private citizens. They traveled to Ukraine and to Russia without Chinese permission. They also stressed that their advice to Chinese citizens is to avoid traveling to all conflict zones. I don't think that answer is going to be satisfactory for Kyiv, particularly when it believes that there are many more Chinese citizens fighting on the side of Russia. However, Zelensky's point that he believes, or Ukraine believes, that China is tacitly supporting Russia in this war is going to be more crucial to discussions and negotiations with the United States than the capture of two Chinese citizens believed to be fighting with the Russians in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Oz Chatterjee, coming to us live from Kyiv. The Kremlin reportedly wants to send 5 million Russian settlers to territories it occupies in Ukraine over the next 5 years. Now, the efforts would be part of a wider Russification of parts of Ukraine that has already been ongoing since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022. Now, the head of Ukraine's Center for the Study of Occupation, Petro Andrushchenko, wrote on the social platform Telegram that Moscow has laid out the plans during a conference in Rostov-on-Don. The goal is to increase the population of the occupied territories in eastern Ukraine to 10 million by 2030. That would be a doubling of the current population, which has seen a steep decrease after years of hardships of war and Russian rule. Forced Russification is part of the Kremlin policy to keep its control over the occupied areas. Inhabitants are forced to accept Russian citizenship or face deportation, and schools are run by Russian teachers and teach the Moscow-approved curriculum. The United States is weighing the redeployment of as many as 10,000 troops from Poland and Romania, according to media reports. This comes amid President Trump's push on Europe to take more responsibility for its own defense. According to U.S. and European sources, which spoke with NBC News, the U.S. Defense Department is considering a proposal to withdraw around half of the 20,000 troops sent to Eastern Europe in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The sources reiterated, however, that the scope of the potential crackdown is still under discussion. Responding to these reports, General Christopher Cavoli, the commander of U.S. forces in Europe, announced that he has consistently recommended keeping troop numbers at the same levels as the last few years. Asked whether any withdrawal would impact the U.S.'s ability to respond to a crisis in Eastern Europe or a potential conflict with Russia, Cavoli said it would.